Good day, beautiful people. I'm looking for my pen. I found one. Auntie, shalom, shalom, mom, shalom. Great rising, great rising. Well, happy Sunday, beautiful people. It is January the 9th, 2022, day 350 of year 3 of reading through the books of the law and the prophets and of the 3-year consecutive day count, day 1018. Today, I think we're going to finish reading up the book of Maccabees, y'all. We got 4 more chapters, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. 5 chapters, but they're real short. Might as well be 2. But we're going to finish that today, and we'll be starting Genesis over when we come back on Tuesday. But we probably won't finish the book, Walk of the Spirit, Walk of Power, until Wednesday because of the appendix and everything. So I was trying to see if we could get them started together, Genesis with the next book, but it's going to straddle a couple days, but it's going to all work out. All right, Marie, Betswabu. All right, y'all. So we're going to be finishing up chapter 15. Now, possibly finishing up chapter 15 in the Walk of the Spirit, the Walk of Power today. All right, y'all. Let's go ahead and get started. Go ahead and do the call for a wholehearted commitment, also known as the Shema. Nikki, good day, cousin, good day. All right, y'all. These are the commands, decrees, and regulations that Yahuwah your God commanded me to teach you. You must obey them in the land you are about to enter and occupy, and you and your children and grandchildren must fear Yahuwah your God as long as you live. If you obey his decrees and commands, you will enjoy a long life. Listen closely, Israel, and be careful to obey. Then all will go well with you, and you will have many children in the land flowing with milk and honey, just as Yahuwah, the God of your ancestors, promised you. Listen, O Israel, Yahuwah, our God, he is one God. And you must love Yahuwah your God with all your heart and all your soul and all your strength. And you must commit yourselves wholeheartedly to these commands that I'm giving you today. Repeat them again and again to your children. Talk about them when you're at home and when you're on the road, when you're going to bed, and when you're getting up. Tie them to your hands and wear them on your forehead as reminders. Write them on the doorposts of your house and on your gates. Yahuwah your God will soon bring you into the land that he swore to give to you when he made a vow to your ancestors, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. It is a land with large, prosperous cities that you did not build. The houses will be richly stocked with goods that you did not produce. You will draw water from cisterns you did not dig, and you will eat from vineyards and olive trees that you did not plant. When you have eaten your fill in this land, be careful not to forget Yahuwah, who rescued you from slavery in the land of Egypt. You must fear Yahuwah your God and serve him. When you take an oath, you must only use his name. You must not worship any of the gods of the neighboring nations, for Yahuwah your God who lives among you is a jealous God. His anger will flare up against you, and he will wipe you from the face of the earth. You must not test Yahuwah your God as you did when you complained at Massa. You must diligently obey the commands of Yahuwah your God, all the laws and decrees he has given you. And do what is right and good in Yahuwah's sight, so all will go well with you. Then you will enter and occupy the good land that the Lord swore to give to your ancestors. You will drive out all the enemies living in the land, just as Yahuwah said you would. In the future, your children will ask you, what is the meaning of these laws, decrees, and regulations that Yahuwah our God has commanded us to obey? Then you must tell them, we were Pharaoh's slaves in Egypt. But Yahuwah brought us out of Egypt with his strong hand. Yahuwah did miraculous signs and wonders before our eyes, dealing terrifying blows against Egypt and Pharaoh and all his people. He brought us out of Egypt so he could give us this land he had sworn to give to our ancestors. And Yahuwah our God commanded us to obey all these decrees and to fear him, so that he can continue to bless us and preserve our lives as he has done to this day. For we will be counted as righteous when we obey all the commands Yahuwah our God has given to us. All right, so let me move this down here. Let me go ahead and bring this up. Hold on. That way. I got that right there in the background. Boom. Okay. All right, y'all. Head back on over here to the fourth book of Maccabees. So everybody should remember yesterday, boy, when that last son just ran and jumped into the fire. Woo! May y'all give us all that type of determination, boldness, and faithfulness to him and to his words. May we be walking, living Torahs for all our days. And may we reproduce it in our children for the generations to come. Okay. Yeah, we're just going to finish this up, y'all. We're going to do these last five chapters. They're short. Okay. 4th Maccabees Chapter 14. And more than this, they even urged them on to this. Hold on. And even more than, let me read. Let me read the last couple verses of the previous chapter and flow right into it. Hold on. Now, you are not ignorant of the charm of brotherhood, which the divine and all-wise providence has imparted through fathers to children and has endangered through the mother's womb, in which these brothers, having remained an equal time and having been formed from the same period and been increased by the same blood, and having been perfected through the same principle of life, and having been brought forth at equal intervals, and having sucked milk from the same fountains, hence their brotherly souls are reared up lovingly together, and increased the more powerfully by reason of the simultaneous rearing, and by daily intercourse, and by other education and exercise in the Torah of Elohim. Brotherly love being thus sympathetically constituted, the 7 brethren had a more sympathetic mutual harmony, for being educated in the same Torah and practicing the same virtues and reared up in a just course of life, they increased this harmony with each other. For a like ardor for what is right and honorable increased their fellow feeling towards each other. For it, acting along with belief, made their brotherly feeling more desirable to them. And yet, although nature and intercourse and virtuous morals increased their brotherly love, those who were left endured to behold their brethren, who were ill used for their belief, tortured even unto death. And this is where chapter 14 picks up. Shayla, hey girl, hey. And more than this, they even urged them on to this ill treatment, so that they not only despised pains themselves, but they got the better of their affections of brotherly love. O reasonings more royal than a king and freer than a free man, sacred and harmonious concert of the 7 brethren as concerning piety. None of the 7 youths turned cowardly or shrank back from death, but all of them, as though running the road to immortality, hasten on to death through tortures. For just as hands and feet are moved sympathetically with the directions of the soul, so those holy youths agreed unto death for the sake of the belief, as through the immortal soul of the belief. O holy 7 of harmonious brethren, for as the 7 days of creation about the belief, so the youths, circling around the number 7, annul the fear of torments. We now shudder at the recital of the affliction of those young men, but they not only beheld and not only heard the immediate execution of the threat, but undergoing it, persevered, and that through the pains of the fire. And what could be more painful? For the power of fire, being sharp and quick, speedily dissolved their bodies. And think it not wonderful that reasoning bore rule over those men and their torments, when even a woman's mind despised more manifold pains. For the mother of those 7 youths endured the rackings of each of her children. And consider how comprehensive is the love of offspring, which draws everyone to sympathy of thy affection, where irrational animals possess a similar sympathy and love for their offspring with men. The tame birds frequenting the roofs of our houses defend their fledglings. Others build their nests and hatch their young in the tops of mountains and in the precipices of valleys and the holes and tops of trees to keep off the intruder. And if not able to do this, they fly, circling round them in agony of affection, calling out of their own notes, and save their offspring in whatsoever manner they are able. But why should we point attention to the sympathy toward children shown by irrational animals? The very bees at the top of the season of honey making attack all who approach, and piercing with their sting as with a sword those who draw near to their hive, and repel them even unto death. But sympathy with her children did not turn aside the mother of the young, who had a spirit kindred with that of Abraham. Oof, boy. Chapter 15. O reasoning of the sons, Lord over the passions, and the belief more desirable to a mother than progeny. The mother, when 2 things were set before her, the belief and the safety of her sons for a time, on the conditional promise of a tyrant, rather elected the belief which according to Elohim preserves to eternal life. Oh, in what way can I describe ethically the affections of parents toward their children, the resemblance of soul and of form engrafted into the small type of a child in a wonderful manner, especially through the greater sympathy of mothers with the feelings of those born to them? For how much mothers, for by how much mothers are by nature weak in disposition and prolific in offspring, by so much the fonder they are of children. And of all mothers, the mother of the 7 was the fondest of children, who in 7 childbirths had deeply engendered love toward them, and through her many pains undergone in connection with each one, was compelled to feel sympathy with them. Yet, through fear of Elohim, who neglected the temporary salvation of her children, not but that, on account of the excellent disposition to the Torah, her maternal affection toward them was increased, for they were both just and temperate, and manly, and high minded, and fond of their brethren, and so fond of their mother that even unto death they obeyed her by observing the Torah. Oh my gosh. Woo! Yo, you remember yesterday when we read the part when they got down to the last son, and then the mama came in, right? And they was like, surely the mama is gonna get the son to come to his senses, and he ain't gonna die by these tortures. But the mama looked at them, and then she looked at her son, and then she spoke in her Ivrit tongue, right? In her Hebrew tongue, which they couldn't understand. She spoke to him and said, be faithful to the Torah, my son, even unto death. And then he said, unloose my chains and let me speak to the king. Right? So he thought the king unloose the boy. His mama done said something to him. He chant, okay, you coming to your senses, boy. And he said, oh, wicked king, don't think that I'm going to turn against the Torah just to save my life. But even unto death, I will keep it, and I will be faithful, and Yah will keep my mama safe. And he took off and ran and jumped himself into the fire. Holy schmoly. May we all have that much faith. And when I read that, something that just shooketh down deep in my shana. I'm like, oh boy, we got so much growing to do. We got so much growing to do. Okay, hold on. Marie gangsta, right? Like, you ain't gonna take away my honorable death. To the fire I go. Okay. Whew, boy. Look, let me go back up here. Not but that, on account of the excellent disposition to the Torah, her maternal affection toward them was increased, for they were both just and temperate, and manly, and high minded, and fond of their brethren, and so fond of their mother that even unto death they obeyed her by observing the Torah. And yet, though there were so many circumstances connected with love of children to draw a mother to sympathy, in the case of none of them were the various tortures able to pervert her principle. Whew. But she inclined each one separately and all together to death for the belief. O holy nature and parental feeling and reward of bringing up children, and unconquerable maternal affection! At the racking and roasting of each one of them, the observant mother was prevented by the belief from changing. She beheld her children's flesh dissolving around the fire, and their extremities quivering on the ground, and the flesh of their heads drop forwards down to their beards like masks. O mother, who was tried at this time with bitter pangs than those of parturition. O you, only woman who has brought forth perfect holiness, your firstborn, expiring, turns you not, nor the second, looking miserable in his tortures, nor the third, breathing out his soul, nor when you did behold the eyes of each of them looking sternly upon their tortures, and their nostrils foreboding death, did you weep. When you did see children's flesh heaped upon children's flesh that had been torn off, heads decapitated upon heads, dead falling upon the dead, and a choir of children turned through torture into a burying ground, you lamented not. Not so do siren melodies or songs of swans attract the hearers to listening. O voices of children calling upon your mother in the midst of torments, with what manner of torments was the mother herself tortured, as her sons were undergoing the wheel and the fires? But observant reasoning, having strengthened her courage in the midst of sufferings, enabled her to forego, for the time, parental love. Although beholding the destruction of 7 children, the noble mother, after each one embrace, stripped off her feelings through belief in Elohim. For just as in a council room, beholding her own soul, vehement counselors, nature and parentage and love of her children, and the racking of her children, she holding 2 votes, one for the death, the other for the preservation of her children, did not lean to that which would have saved her children for the safety of a brief space. But this daughter of Abraham remembered his holy fortitude. O holy mother of a nation, avenger of the Torah. O holy mother of a nation, avenger of the Torah, and defender of the belief, and prime bearer in the battle of affections. O nobler in endurance than males, and more manly than men in patience. For as the ark of Noah, bearing the world and the world filling flood, bore up against the waves, so you, the guardian of the Torah, when surrounded on every side by the flood of passions and straitened by violent storms, which were the torments of your children, did bear up nobly against the storms, against the belief. Chapter 16. If then even a woman, and that an aged one, and the mother of 7 children, endured to see her children's torments even unto death, confessedly observant reasoning is master even of the passions. I have proved then that not only men have obtained the mastery of their passions, but also that a woman despised the greatest torments. And not so fierce were the lions round Daniel, nor the furnace of Mishael burning with the most vehement fires, as that natural love of children burnt within her when she beheld her 7 sons tortured. But with the reasoning of the belief, the mother quenched passions so great and powerful. For we must consider also this, that had the woman been faint hearted as being their mother, she would have lamented over them, and perhaps might have spoken thus: Ah, wretched I am many times miserable, who having borne 7 sons, have become the mother of none. O seven useless childbirths, and 7 profitless periods of labor, and fruitless givings of suck, and miserable nursings at the breast. Vainly for your sakes, O sons, have I endured many pains, and the more difficult anxieties of rearing. Alas, of my children, some of you unmarried, and some who have married to no profit, I shall not see your children, nor be felicitated as your grandmother. Ah, nor be felicitated as a grandmother. Ah, that I, who had many and fair children, should be a lone widow full of sorrows. Nor should I die, shall I have a son, nor should I die, shall I have a son to bury me. But with such a lament is this the holy and Elohim fearing mother bewailed none of them, nor did she divert any of them from death, nor grieve for them as for the dead, but as one possessed with an adamantine mind, and one as bringing forth again her full number of sons to immortality, she rather with supplication exhorted them to death in behalf of the belief. O woman, soldier of Elohim for the belief, you, aged and a female, have conquered through endurance even a tyrant, and though but weak, have been found more powerful in deeds and words. For when you were seized along with your children, you stood looking upon Eleazar in torments, and said to your sons in the Ivrit tongue, or the Hebrew tongue, O sons, noble is the contest, to which you being called as a witness for the nation, strive zealously for the Torah of your country. For it were disgraceful that this old man should endure pains for the sake of righteousness, and that you who are younger should be afraid of the tortures. Remember that through Elohim ye obtained existence and have enjoyed it. And on this second account ye ought to bear every affliction because of Elohim, for whom also our father Abraham was forward to sacrifice Isaac, our progenitor, and shuddered not at the sight of his own paternal hand descending down with the sword upon him. And the righteous Daniel was cast into the lions, and Canayahu and Azariah and Mishael were slung out into the furnace of the fire, yet they endured through Elohim. You, then, having the same belief towards Elohim, be not troubled, for it is unreasonable that they who knew the belief should stand up against troubles. With these arguments, the mother of the 7, exhorting each of her sons, over persuaded them from transgressing the commandment of Elohim. And they saw this too, that they who die for Elohim live to Elohim, as Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and all the patriarchs. Chapter 17. Excuse me. And some of the spear bearers said that when she herself was about to be seized for the purpose of being put to death, she threw herself upon the pile rather than that they should touch her person. Don't touch me. I'll put my own self on fire. Yo, them sons was gangster because they mama straight gangster. Marie, Yesal Shalom. Levon, blessings. Hold up. May we be found to be her daughters. And some of the spear bearers said that when she herself was about to be seized for the purpose of being put to death, she threw herself upon the pile rather than that they should touch her person. O mother, who together with 7 children did destroy the violence of the tyrant and render void his wicked intentions and exhibit the nobleness of belief. For you, as a house bravely built upon the pillar of your children, did bear without swaying the shock of tortures. Be of good cheer, therefore, O holy minded mother, holding the firm substance of the hope of your steadfastness with Elohim. Not so gracious does the moon appear with the stars in heaven, as you are established honorable before Elohim and fixed in the expanse with your sons, whom you did illuminate with the belief to the stars. For your bearing of children was after the fashion of a child of Abraham. And were it lawful for us to paint as on a tablet of belief of your story, the spectators would not shudder at beholding the mother of 7 children enduring for the sake of the belief. Hold on. And were it lawful for us to paint as on a tablet the belief of your story, the spectators would not shudder at beholding the mother of 7 children enduring for the sake of the belief various tortures, even unto death. And it had been a worthy thing to have inscribed upon the tomb itself these words as a memorial to those of the nation. Here, an aged priest and an aged woman and 7 sons are buried through the violence of a tyrant who wished to destroy the polity of the Ivarim, or the Hebrews. These also avenged their nation, looking unto Elohim and enduring torments unto death. For it was truly a divine contest which was carried through by them. For at that time, virtue presided over the contest, approving the victory through endurance, namely immortality, eternal life. Eleazar was the first to contend, and the mother of the 7 children entered the contest, and the brethren contended. The tyrant was the opposite, and the world and living men were spectators. And reverence for Elohim conquered and crowned her own athletes, who did not admire those champions of true legislation, who were not astonished. The tyrant himself and all their council admired their endurance, through which also they now stand beside the divine throne and live a blessed life. You had better do something with your life after all this. You take these men, they were baffled. They were baffled. You hear me? Like they lost all their power to torture these men when these men begin to throw themselves into the fire. Like, wait, hold on. Who running this show, my G? Hold on. We are here to torture you. No, you won't. You won't touch my holy being. In the fire I go, right? Yo. And they marvel at the courage of these men, not to shrink back, but to hold firmly to what they believe and would not deny the Torah, right? Nor the giver of it. Whew. Look, hold on. I'm going to read this again. The tyrant was the opposite, and the world and living men were the spectators. And reverence for Elohim conquered and crowned her own athletes, who did not admire those champions of true legislation, who were not astonished. The tyrant himself and all their council admired their endurance, through which also they now stand beside the divine throne and live a blessed life. Wow. For Moshe says, and all the Kodeshim, a Kodeshim means holy ones, right? For all the Kodeshim are under your hands. These, therefore, having been sanctified through Elohim, have been honored, not only with this honor, but that also by their means the enemy did not overcome our nation, and that the tyrant was punished and their country purified, for they became the antipodes to the sin of the nation, and the divine providence saved Yasharal, aforetime afflicted by the blood of those pious ones and the propitiatory death. For the tyrant Antiochus, looking to their manly virtue and to their endurance in torture, proclaimed that endurance as an example to his soldiers. And they they proved to be to him noble and brave for land battles and for sieges, and he conquered and stormed the towns of all his enemies. And last chapter, y'all, chapter 18, the fourth Maccabees, and we will be done, y'all. Okay, this was good. Oh, Yasharal. Oh, actually, it says, "Oh, Yasharali, children of Israel," right? O children of Israel, descendants of the seed of Abraham, obey this Torah and in every way be observant, knowing that observant reasoning is the Lord of passions, and those not only inward but outward. When those persons, giving up their bodies to pains for the sake of the belief, were not only admired by men, but were deemed worthy of a divine portion, and the nation through them obtained peace, and having renewed the observance of the Torah in their country, drove the enemy out of the land. And the tyrant Antiochus was both punished upon the earth and is punished now that he is dead. For when he was quite unable to compel Yasharal to adopt foreign customs and to desert the manner of life of their fathers, then departing from Jerusalem, he made war against the Persians. And the righteous mother of the 7 children spoke also as follows to her offspring: I was a pure virgin and went not beyond my father's house, but I took care of the built up rib. No destroyer of the desert or ravisher of the plain injured me, nor did the destructive, deceitful snake make spoil of my chaste virginity, and I remained with my man during the period of my prime. And these, my children, having arrived at maturity, their father died. Blessed was he. So apparently, I'm just put it together. Eleazar, the man that they tortured first, the older man, that was their father. They had a father and a mother like that. Yo, imagine a household that they grew up in. Yo, look. Okay, so Eleazar was this brave soldier woman's husband. Okay, hold on. And the righteous mother of the 7 children spoke also as follows to her offspring: I was a pure virgin and went not beyond my father's house, but I took care of the built up rib. No destroyer of the desert or ravisher of the plain injured me, nor did the destructive, deceitful snake make spoil of my chaste virginity, and I remained with my man during the period of my prime. And these, my children, having arrived at maturity, their father died. Blessed was he. For having sought out a life of fertility in children, he was not grieved with a period of loss of children. And he used to teach you. Oh, okay. So she's saying he did not have to endure the loss of all his children. Trina, hey girl, hey, because clearly he died first. They took the man first. We'll get y'all to bow. Let's get daddy on about. Let's get daddy out here and see how y'all buckle. Oh, daddy didn't buckle. Okay, we'll start doing the sons one by one. Oh, the sons, or even the mother. Oh shoot. And these, my children, having arrived at maturity, their father died. Blessed was he, for having sought out a life of fertility in children. He was not grieved with a period of loss of children. And he used to teach you, when yet with you, the Torah and the prophets. And he used to read to you the slayings of Havel by Cain, or Abel by Cain, and the offspring up of Yitzchak or Isaac, and the imprisonment of Joseph. And he used to tell you of the zealous Peniac, and inform you of Cananiah, Azariah, and Mishael in the fire. And he used to glorify Daniel, who was in the den of lions, and pronounce him blessed. And he used to put you in mind of the scriptures of Yeshayahu, which is Isaiah, which says, even if you pass through the fire, it shall not burn you. He chanted to you, David, the hymn writer, who says, many are the afflictions of the just. He declared the Proverbs of Shalomah or Solomon, who says, he is a tree of life to all those who do his will. He used to verify Yikitz Yakel or Ezekiel, who said, shall these dry bones live? For he did not forget the song which Moshe taught, proclaiming, I will kill and I will make to live. This is our life and the length of our days. Oh, that bitter and yet not bitter day, when the bitter tyrant of the Yavanim, quenching fire with fire in his cruel cauldrons, brought with boiling rage the 7 sons of the daughter of Abraham to the catapult and to all his torments. He pierced the balls of their eyes and cut out their tongues and put them to death with varied tortures. Wherefore, divine retribution pursued and will pursue the pestilent wretch. But the children of Abraham, with their victorious mother, are assembled together to the choir of their fathers, having received pure and immortal souls from Elohim, to whom all glory forever and ever. Amen. And that, my beautiful people, is the end of the 4th book of Maccabees. And it is also the end of the books of the law and the prophets. And we will be starting over at Genesis when we come back here. So let's go ahead and see if we can finish up chapter 15 of the walk of the Spirit, the walk of power. Okay, I'm sorry. My oldest son, sent me a message. All right, y'all. This always flips over. Okay. That was good, y'all. I forgot who asked me to read it because I wasn't originally going to read Maccabees this time through, but somebody asked me to read it. I'm glad I decided to. So I don't remember who it was, but shout out to you. That was good. Okay. Learning to hate what hinders. Did we stop? No, I highlighted in blue. Hold on. Oh, we went past there. Okay. Agape love by willpower alone, and it has a question mark. Okay. We would never walk in agape love to the fullness that God intends by the strength of our own willpower. For instance, have you ever noticed that people can only be nice for so long to a person who is getting on their nerves before their will snaps? Then they say, get out of my house. They stretched their will as thin as they could stretch it. And when it broke, there went their ability to act nice. It's easy to fantasize about agape. We can get this far away look in our eyes and quote, though I give my body to be burned and give away. Look, hold on. That's funny. It's easy to fantasize about agape. We can get this far away look in our eyes and quote, though I give my body to be burned and give away all my goods to feed the poor, but have not love, but there is a deadly knockdown, drag out fight for our lives out there in the world where people try to destroy other people and the devil is out to destroy everyone. The prospect of walking in agape love doesn't look as nice and easy out there as it does in church while we're under the anointing. Do you want to be just like Jesus? Remember, it's a Christian book. Stay with me, y'all. Christian guy. All right, but principles are still good nonetheless. Do you want to be just like Jesus? You may say, oh, yes, I want to raise the dead, be the head of a big organization, and become the best preacher in the world. Oh, yes, I want to be just like Jesus. Okay, then, Jesus says, oh, no man anything but to love him. Romans chapter 13, verse 8. What does that mean? Well, it doesn't matter how many payments I make on my debt of love to you. I can never pay that debt in full. You could slap me on the cheek and I would turn the other cheek. You could do that. I don't want to be a bad example to y'all. Because we be fighting. You could despitefully use me and I would pray for you. You could hate me and I would do good for you. Those are all descriptions of agape. Clearly we all got a lot of growing to do, because I'm a fight. At this point in my life, I'm gonna fight you. Those are all descriptions of agape. No matter how many times you do me ugly and I in turn make another payment of love to you, agape will keep me in your debt. Another thing about Jesus, he seeks not his own. And he says that if a man sues you for your car, you are to go fill it up with gas, polish it, and get it tuned. Then tell the man, I'm giving this to you in the name of Jesus. I want you to know that you didn't take it from me, because the only thing that is taken from me is what God allows. And if he allows it, I sow it. I'm sowing this car to you, so I polished it, tuned it, and filled it up with gas. The devil is stealing nothing from me. It is nice to admire someone who walks in enough agape to do something like that. But how do you get to that place in your spiritual walk? You might as well face it. You aren't going to make it to agape unless you find some way to let the Holy Ghost purge you of anything that is contrary to agape love in your life. If I were you, I would take his way. I know, right? Marie, like the church folks say, pray my strength in the Lord. Y'all, I'm like, Father, forgive me. Looks, you saw what he did? I'm sorry, I failed this test. Test me again in a couple years on this one. The progression to agape. We have seen that in 1 Corinthians chapter 12, verse 28, the government of God begins with the office of the mighty apostle, the first operation, and ends with the diversity of tongues, the eighth and final operation of God. And then in 1 Corinthians chapter 13, verse 1 through 3, Paul reverses the order. Quote, though I speak with the tongues of men and of angels and have not charity, I become a sounding brass or a tinkling cymbal. And though I have the gift of prophecy and understand all mysteries and all knowledge, and though I have all faith so that I could remove mountains and have not charity, I am nothing. And though I bestow all my goods to feed the poor, and though I give my body to be burned and have not charity, it profiteth me nothing. End quote. Starting with the eighth operation of diversities of tongues, Paul builds us through six phases, all the way through mountain moving faith and ultimate giving to agape love. So because the subject of agape love is so dominant in 1 Corinthians chapter 13, we have missed the sequence or the step-by-step progression that would eventually build us up through 6 levels of spiritual maturity and deliver us to agape love. At this point, you may be saying, I'd sure like to see that reverse order you're talking about, Brother Roberson. Well, let's take the first 3 verses of 1 Corinthians chapter 13, phrase by phrase, and find out what Paul was really saying. As we do, we'll discover the divine progression to agape love. The next section, 6 steps to spiritual maturity. There are 6 distinct levels of spiritual maturity listed in these first 3 verses that the